Hello. We so rarely think about how lucky we are to live in ordinary houses and apartments, but today you will definitely appreciate your place of residence. In this selection we will show you places that, when you look at them, it's hard to believe that people really live there. Let's go. We all love the Venice we know and admire the most romantic city on the water. But few people know that there is a much less romantic analog on the shores of the Atlantic Ocean in Nigeria. Welcome to Makoko. In the past, a fishing village, and now real slums that are located on the water. People once came here to earn a little living, and now the population here reaches 200,000 people. However, the lack of proper sewerage and a large number of motorboats made the water here so dirty that fishing became almost impossible. And locals cannot receive normal education and medical care, due to the fact that the government does not officially recognize the settlement. Of course, many charitable foundations are trying to fix the problem, but so far the life of the local population is more like surviving in a disaster. I want to believe that one day this will change. What is it like to live constantly experiencing oxygen starvation? Residents of the city of Larincanado, located in Peru, will answer this question. The fact is that the city is located at an altitude of more than 5,000 meters, and is rightfully considered the highest populated area on our planet. Now approximately 30,000 people live here. But the state of the population is shocking. But what makes people live in such conditions? 2 reasons: hope and gold mines. People come here from all over the country with the desire to get rich quickly, but due to the policies of local companies, only a few succeed. Can you believe that about 10,000 monks, nuns and novices live in small houses practically on top of each other? This place in Tibet is called Larongar, or the Buddhist Institute of the 5 Sciences. It is located at an altitude of 4,000 meters in the mountains, but this did not prevent it from becoming one of the most important pilgrimage points. Residents go to school every day, engage in spiritual practices, and in the evening go home. And just think about it. After all, someone has to rise to the very top. When talking about truly unique places, it is impossible not to mention Yanjian. This city is located in Tibet, and is considered the narrowest in the world. And not surprisingly, its maximum width is only 400 meters, and in some areas it barely reaches 40. Despite its size, about 400,000 people live in Yanjian. How is this possible? The secret is that it extends for as much as 60 kilometers in length. By the way, there are also advantages. Due to the unusual location, there are few cars here, which makes the air clean. But it is still difficult to imagine how so many people manage to live in such a cramped place. Sometimes you drive across a bridge, and don't even realize that there is an entire residential area underneath it. Subtitles made by Dima Torzak. For example, this is a bridge in Manila, Philippines. It's scary to think, but people really are forced to live in such conditions and even raise children. Lack of basic amenities, complete unsanitary conditions, endless noise from cars. This is their daily struggle for life. But the owners of this house neglect not only their own comfort, but also cause inconvenience to others. In fact, this is one of the so-called nail houses in China. The government, when building a new highway, cannot always agree with the owners on the relocation and demolition of the building. Then they build a road around the house, and the residents are forced to stay inside for days, surrounded by highway noise and exhaust fumes. And you can't even open a window when you want fresh air. Let's move a little further north, to one of the glaciers in Antarctica. Meet Halley 6, the first polar station to float on an ice floe. The facility consists of 8 interconnected buildings that can be moved using heavy equipment. This is critically important, given that the Brunt Glacier is continuously melting, and the station may be flooded. Ready for it. It is not difficult to guess that those who come here are at constant risk. In addition, working on hull is clearly not for those who suffer from a lack of vitamin D. Since the beginning of winter, the sun has been absent here in principle, and polar explorers will only be able to see it after 100 days. Wind speed of 95 kilometers per hour and waves reaching 7 meters. Residents of the Canadian city of Fort Erie sometimes have to deal with such weather conditions. And although this looks more like a scene from a post-apocalyptic movie, people really have to live here and fight the vagaries of nature with all their might. But the ice on the front of my house is so thick that, frankly, we think it will be about a month before we can look at it. Do you have any thoughts about what you see? This is not just some strange dwelling. This is a real state. That's right. The smallest country in the world, called Sealand, was created on a British offshore platform in the last century. Alas, Sealand is not officially recognized as a new state, but it already has 27 citizens and issues its own currency, stamps, and even passports. By the way, you can also try your luck and apply for citizenship like any other person. Well, we have already seen a state with a population of 27 people. What about a city with a population of 270, enclosed in one single building? Yes, this is not just a house, but a whole city under one roof. With its own infrastructure and everything necessary for life. It is located in Alaska in the tiny town of Whitey. The tunnel through which residents can get to the nearest populated area operates only from 7 in the morning to 10 in the evening, and the direction of movement in it changes. Every half hour a village for those who are clearly not afraid of heights. This 200-year-old settlement in southwestern China is located on cliffs 800 meters high. The only way to get down is a 2-hour trek on rickety wooden stairs. Just think about it, its population is about 18,000 people. They all moved here out of desperation and live, although united, but very poorly. So dear introverts, we have found your dream home, and it is located on one of the peaks of the Italian Alps. Here, at an altitude of 2,000 meters, you can definitely spend time in silence, enjoying solitude and admiring the scenery. What's the catch? Well, getting here is not easy to say the least, and even for basic medical care or supplies you will have to go through a difficult journey only by helicopter. Subtitles adjusted by Simon. Do you remember that feeling when you did something shameful, and you want to get as far away from everyone as possible? We found the perfect place for this. Edinburgh of the Seven Seas is located 2,170 kilometers from the nearest populated area, and is considered one of the most remote settlements on Earth. About 270 people live on the island, and you can get here only for 2 weeks, overcoming the stormy waters of the Atlantic Ocean. You can of course try your luck and get there in just 6 days, but if you miss the ferry, you have to wait a year for the next one. Santa Cruz is a tiny island off the coast of Colombia, occupying only 97 hundredths of an acre. Despite its modest size, it is home to about 1,200 people, making it 4 times more populous than Manhattan. At the same time, there is no normal sewage system on the island, fresh water is brought by the military, and electricity is turned on for only 5 hours a day. However, what makes people stay here? You won't believe the lack of mosquitoes. The island was noticed by several fishermen who, after a tiring fishery, decided to rest here. They found there were no nuisance insects, which are a problem in Colombia. Surprisingly, it was this factor that became the basis for the creation of the settlement. Liberty Bay is the name of an incredible island near Vancouver, built by 2 artists. The settlement consists of 12 floating platforms, and it can only be reached by swimming. Residents get water from a nearby waterfall, and since they do not have electricity or a refrigerator, they eat only fresh food that they can get from the water or the nearby forest. In a word, they live according to the precepts of Robinson Crusoe. Do you want to look at a home that is approximately 140,000 years old? Then welcome to Iran, to the place where the ancient village of Kandabin is located. People here live right on the slope of the volcano, and their houses are carved inside the volcanic rocks. The mountain itself arose 140,000 years ago as a result of a natural process, and after the eruption, pyroclastic flows formed around a rock more than 100 meters high. At the moment, the population of the village is no more than 600 people. But oddly enough, they seem to be more than satisfied with everything. What is it like to live in constant fear and find yourself under flows of hot lava? The inhabitants of the Japanese island of Ogashima can tell you about this. It is based on 4 volcanoes, and although they have been dormant for several hundred years, in the 18th century there was already one eruption here, and people had to leave the island for 50 years. But later life returned to this place again, and you can only get to the island by helicopter, because it is surrounded by inaccessible rocks. For many, living in the mountains is a lifelong dream, but not everyone can adapt to it in real life. And is this such a heavenly place if you live in the lowlands, as the owner of these houses? Well, obviously they have to work hard to get to civilization. And this is not to mention precipitation, high humidity, the risk of earthquakes, and worst of all, rock falls. Not far from Verona, in northern Italy, there is a villa called Sunflower. This is the first rotating house, which was built back in 1935. It rotates on a large turntable, following the movement of the sun throughout the day. And yes, although its owners do not suffer from a lack of vitamin D and disgusting living conditions, it certainly cannot be called ordinary. And the owner of this house has a new view from his window literally every few minutes. According to the architect's idea, this miracle of 150 square meters in size uses a minimum of energy, which has a beneficial effect on the environment. It is located at the top of the Italian resort town of Rimini, but at the same time it is far from civilization and is located almost in the middle of wild nature. This is not just some kind of floating house. This is a house on the tiniest inhabited island on Earth. Look, there's barely enough room for a tree in a house. Of course, you can forget about the backyard, and the owner probably lives in tension because the flow of water could one day cause irreparable damage to the island, and therefore to his home. And this is Sherbam, an extremely unusual and beautiful city in Yemen. The tall heart brick buildings give it a stunning coloring, and many call it Chicago in the middle of the desert. It doesn't look very big, but 7,000 people live there. In addition, it is quite hot here. In the coldest month, the temperature does not drop below 18.60 degrees Celsius, and in 2008 Sherbam was flooded by a tropical cyclone. Remember the cartoon Howl's Moving Castle? Well, thanks to the architects from Copenhagen, it has become a little more real. True, there is no magic inside, the space inside is quite modest. And living with the feeling that you are constantly moving somewhere is not for everyone. The shape of the house resembles a hexagonal prism that walks on large metal paws. I wonder if it is worth having a special category of driver's license to drive such a thing? Try to remember the moment when you overdid it at the bar, came home and tried to fall asleep, and at least roughly understand what the residents of these houses feel. The building is located in Vancouver, and you can't walk around the room in the morning with a mug of hot coffee and it will not work, but you can permanently feel like a sailor. Another houseboat on the water? Come on, that's not what we're here for. That's right, the platform is designed to go down to a depth of several meters, and the owner probably feels like a human amphibian without any equipment. The views are certainly gorgeous, but that's until some shark tries to attack your fortress. Migingo Island is a small island located in Lake Victoria, the largest lake in Africa, between Kenya and Uganda. Despite its outward unattractiveness, the peculiarity of this island is that it is a refuge for many birds, and is also known for a large number of fish around. This creates serious territorial disputes Biden wins with the most important products in such conditions. Looks creepy, doesn't it? In 2022, a drought set in the once green and beautiful Shaanxi province of China. Dozens of tributaries of the largest river in Eurasia have become shallow. The population had to face a shortage of drinking water and electricity, disruptions in cargo delivery, endless wildfires, and unbearable heat. It's hard to even imagine what we felt at that moment. Local residents. Ostrog is a functioning monastery in Montenegro. Its peculiarity is that it is located at an altitude of 900 meters right in the rock. As you understand, getting here by transport, especially public transport, is very difficult. And even on foot, the road will not seem like an everyday walk. In some places the paths are very narrow and rapids. Now only 12 monks live in Ostrog, and there is no doubt that they lead an aesthetic lifestyle. Slap City is definitely not a city for those who are used to living in civilization. Residents of this settlement in the California desert call it the last free place on Earth, where there are supposedly no rules and laws. The perfect place for ex-convicts, drifters, and overenthusiastic hippies. Of course, in the desert they do not have normal sewerage, electricity, and other amenities we are accustomed to. Would you risk spending your holiday here? Subtitles created by Dimatorzak. One homeless man in California decided it was time to change something, and thanks to his creative approach he was able to build a real cottage from scrap materials. It turned out to be a mini version of a luxury villa on a hill, although not in such a luxury format. According to him, he has been living here for decades and does not want to change this place to an ordinary apartment. After these shots, you are unlikely to complain that your apartment is somehow cramped. This guy turned a milk tanker into a full-fledged home with his own hands. Well, he won't be able to boast of a spacious living room, but he seems to be happy with everything. Do you think you could live for years in such a tiny space? Write in the comments.